This message is not the one you came here expecting. You arrived searching for reassurance, for someone to tell you to hold on a little longer, to wait with patient faith for the transformation you have been promised, for the turning point that keeps retreating just beyond the horizon of your endurance. And instead, the universe has sent you something far more sacred than comfort. It has sent you truth. There are messages that soothe, and there are messages that liberate. What you are receiving in this moment belongs to the second kind, the kind that does not feel like a gift at first, the kind that arrives wrapped in the quiet ache of recognition rather than the warmth of hope. Some truths can only reach you when you have finally grown tired enough of waiting to actually listen. The universe does not always speak in signs that say hold on. Sometimes the sign is the exhaustion itself. Sometimes the synchronicity is the silence. Sometimes the divine message arrives not as a reason to stay, but as a sacred, merciful permission to leave. This is that message. Not every chapter of your life is meant to stretch indefinitely. Not every person who has opened something profound inside of you is meant to remain in your story. There are encounters designed not to complete you, but to catalyze you, not to stay at your side, but to set something irrevocable in motion within you, and then withdraw, so that what was awakened can fully flower in their absence. This is not failure. There is no wound in what you are about to understand. This is completion in its most dignified, most spiritually significant form. The graduation of a soul from a curriculum it has fully mastered, even when mastery arrived through suffering, is one of the most luminous moments a human life can contain. You are standing at that threshold now. If you are willing to receive what this message truly carries, if your heart can bear not comfort but clarity, write below, I am ready to hear truth. That willingness alone is already the beginning of your liberation. There is a distinction that the language of romance has never adequately prepared you for, a distinction so critical to your healing that without it, you will spend years misreading the intensity of an encounter as evidence of its permanence. Intensity is not destiny. Depth is not duration. The fire that burns most brilliantly in your chest in the presence of another person is not always a signal that they are meant to remain. Sometimes it is a signal that they are meant to transform. Carl Jung understood this with the rare clarity of a man who had spent decades mapping the invisible architecture of the human soul. He recognized that certain encounters function not as arrivals, but as earthquakes, not as the foundations of a life, but as the seismic events that shattered the structures no longer worthy of you. That crack opened the ground beneath the person you used to be, so that the person you are becoming has room to emerge. The soulmate is the one who meets you after the rubble has been cleared. The soul teacher is the one who caused the collapse. Both are sacred. Only one is meant to stay. Some people enter your life carrying a specific spiritual assignment encoded in the very nature of who they are and how they make you feel. Their purpose is not to love you in the way you have been longing to be loved. Their purpose is to reveal you to yourself, often through methods that feel more like excavation than embrace, more like exposure than tenderness. They arrive in the guise of a lover, but they function as a mirror held at a merciless angle, showing you the parts of yourself you had kept carefully hidden, the wounds you had mistaken for personality, the fears you had disguised as preferences. This is the soul teacher. Their presence in your life is not an accident. Their departure, when it comes, is not a tragedy. It is the completion of a contract written at a level of consciousness far deeper than the ordinary mind can access, a contract with a collective unconscious, with the intelligence that moves through all things and arranges encounters with surgical precision. They were not sent to stay. They were sent to change you permanently. They have done exactly that. There is a practice that every soul who has passed through an encounter like this one is eventually called to undertake, not immediately, not in the raw bleeding center of the experience, but when enough silence has gathered around the wound for something like perspective to form. The practice is this: to look at everything that caused you pain and ask, with ruthless spiritual honesty, what it gave you. Because every gift this person brought into your life arrived disguised as difficulty. Every lesson they delivered was wrapped in the texture of loss. They showed you the precise dimensions of your strength by building a situation that demanded every ounce of it. You did not know what you were capable of enduring, of forgiving, of continuing through, until they placed the weight of this connection on your chest and you found, somehow, that you could still breathe. That is not a small discovery. That is the knowledge of your own resilience, and no one who has not been tested can ever truly possess it. They taught you about your boundaries by crossing every single one of them with such consistency that you were finally, after long last, forced to draw a line and mean it. Before this person, you may have known in the abstract that you deserve to be treated with respect. After this person, you know it in your bones, in the molecular architecture of your self-understanding, in a way that cannot be unknotted or undone. They revealed the truth of your worth by undervaluing it with such precision that the contrast finally became undeniable. There's something clarifying about being consistently offered less than what you deserve by someone whose opinion of you once felt like the most important verdict in existence. The shadow self cannot survive that kind of illumination indefinitely. Eventually, even the most deeply conditioned soul sees the discrepancy between what it has been given and what it knows, on some level beneath language, that it deserves. These are not consolation prizes. These are the irreversible alchemical gifts of a spiritual curriculum designed specifically and deliberately for your evolution. The relationship was not a mistake. It was a semester, an intensive, often agonizing, beautifully constructed semester in the ongoing education of your soul, and the pain you carry from it is not evidence of your failure. It is the weight of everything you learned. You did not survive this for nothing. You were being prepared. There is a cruelty in false hope that exceeds the cruelty of honest limitation. And the most compassionate thing that can be said to you now is the thing that has perhaps been left unsaid for far too long. The problem with this person is not their willingness. It is not a matter of choice or effort or the application of greater love. The limitation you keep encountering in them is not a door they have simply chosen not to open. It is a wall they do not yet have the tools to dismantle. It is not that they won't. It is that they can't. There is a profound difference between those two realities, and understanding which one you are standing in front of is the difference between waiting with purpose and waiting in grief. The person who will not give you what you need is a moral and relational problem, a matter of priority and choice. The person who cannot give you what you need is something else entirely. They are operating at the full extent of their current capacity, and their capacity does not yet include what you require in order to flourish. This is not a condemnation of who they are. It is simply an honest mapping of where they are. Human beings grow at the rate that their own wounds allow. Their shadow self, those unintegrated, unacknowledged parts of their psyche that Carl Jung identified as the source of so much unconscious behavior, governs what they are capable of offering in ways they themselves may not be able to see or name. You cannot be angry at a person for the depth of their unhealed places any more than you can be angry at a river for not flowing upward. But you also cannot wait for the river to change direction. Something in you has been quietly outgrowing this dynamic for longer than you have allowed yourself to admit. The discomfort you feel is not the discomfort of someone losing something irreplaceable. It is the discomfort of someone who has already grown beyond a space that no longer fits, standing in a doorway between what was and what is waiting, still trying to make the past room large enough to contain a future self that has already exceeded its walls. The mismatch you are feeling is real. It is not your imagination or your fear. It is your soul speaking in the most precise language it possesses. Here is where the deepest grief of this particular story is hidden. Not in who this person is, but in who you believed, with such devoted and aching certainty, that they were capable of becoming. You did not fall in love only with them. You fell in love with the version of them that you could see glimmering just beneath the surface of who they showed you, a version that seemed so close, so almost there, so perpetually on the verge of emergence, that to give up on it felt like abandoning something genuinely precious rather than releasing something that was never truly present. This is the most elegant and the most devastating trap the human heart knows. the projection mechanism that Jung mapped so carefully in his study of the human psyche operates with particular power in precisely this kind of dynamic. What you see in another person is always, in some degree, a composite of who they are and who you are capable of imagining. When the person before you possesses certain qualities in raw or incomplete form, your extraordinary capacity for vision fills in what is missing with such vivid and detailed certainty that the imagined whole feels just as real as the visible part. You loved a complete portrait when only half of it had been painted. And the cruelest truth is that you cannot love someone into an evolution they have not chosen to undertake. Love is not a force that compels growth in another person, no matter how pure or how patient or how profoundly offered it is. Growth happens when an individual turns toward their own, becoming with their own will engaged. It cannot be induced from the outside by the intensity of another person's belief in their potential, no matter how warranted that belief may actually be. You cannot wait for a painting to finish painting itself. The energy you have devoted to loving their potential is energy that belongs to your own future, to the relationships and the experiences and the versions of yourself that are waiting beyond this threshold. That energy is not lost. It is simply misdirected. And the moment you redirect it back toward your own life, everything shifts. If something in you is ready to stop waiting for potential and begin living in the reality of what is genuinely here, let that readiness be honored. Subscribe to this channel and allow yourself to be accompanied on that journey. Every choice exists within the field of what it displaces, and the decision to remain in a connection that has completed its purpose is never neutral. It does not simply occupy space. It actively forecloses space, filling the container of your life with an energy that has finished its work but has not yet been released, leaving no room for what is meant to come next, what has already begun moving toward you from the direction you have not yet turned to face. Consider what a single day of waiting costs, not in dramatic, visible terms, but in the quiet, accumulating currency of your own vitality. The mental architecture you have constructed to sustain hope in the face of consistent disappointment, the energy required to hold open a door for someone who keeps almost walking through it, the constant recalibration of your expectations downward to accommodate what this person can offer rather than upward toward what you genuinely require. All of this has a weight that you have been carrying, so long it may have begun to feel like your natural state. It is not your natural state. It is the cost of staying. There is someone you have not yet met who is moving through their own life right now, being shaped by their own experiences, being prepared in ways neither of you can yet see. And the encounter between you is not only possible, but written into the fabric of what the universe intends for this particular chapter of your story. Every day you remain anchored to what is finished is a day the path between you and what is genuinely coming remains partially obscured. The energetic connection you maintain with this person through hope, through grief, through the constant low-frequency hum of what if, is a signal that broadcasts outward and shapes the magnetic field of your reality. What you are most intensely focused upon is what you continue to draw toward yourself. This is not metaphor. This is the operational principle of the universe, functioning exactly as it was designed. Beyond the external cost lies the most intimate one, the self-betrayal of accepting less than you know you deserve, sustained long enough, begins to rewrite the story you tell yourself about what you are worth. The soul keeps meticulous accounts. It knows when it has been asked to make itself smaller for too long. There is a story that the human ego tells about walking away that frames it as defeat, as the final proof that you were not enough, that you could not make it work, that you lacked the endurance or the faith or the love to see it through to completion. This story is a lie constructed by the part of you that has confused persistence with wisdom and suffering with devotion. Walking away is not giving up. It is the highest and most courageous form of honoring the truth that the deeper intelligence within you has been, quietly trying to deliver for longer than you have been willing to receive it. The universe does not operate in straight lines. It operates in energetic currents, in the flow and release of what is complete and the making of space for what is arriving. When something has served its sacred purpose in your life, When the lesson is fully received and the growth it was designed to catalyze is complete, the most spiritually aligned action available to you is not to cling to it, but to release it with gratitude and allow the current to carry you forward. What you hold onto past its time does not become permanent through your insistence. It only becomes heavier. The universe is actively working to clear a path for you. The resistance you feel in this connection, the way it requires so much effort for such incomplete return, the persistent sense that you are pushing against something that was never designed to yield to you. All of this is the intelligence of the divine speaking in the language of friction. What is meant for you does not require you to constantly override your own knowing to sustain belief in it. What is meant for you meets your energy with equal and willing force. There is an energetic law at work in the dynamics of release that carries within it a remarkable paradox. What you cling to cannot leave, and what cannot leave cannot transform. But what you genuinely release enters the field of all possibilities. It may return, reshaped by the very distance you insisted upon, bearing a capacity for depth it could not access while you were still holding it in place. Or it may not return at all, and the space left by its departure fills with something so precisely suited to who you are now that the gratitude you feel will be indistinguishable from awe. Both outcomes are blessings. Both outcomes are evidence of the universe working on your behalf. The release itself is the sacred act. The result is simply the confirmation of what was always already true. You are not abandoning this person by walking forward. You are honoring the contract between you by completing it with the dignity it deserves. There is a shift that occurs in the energetic body the moment genuine release takes root, not the performance of release, not the announcement of it, but the actual interior event of setting down what you have been carrying. And it is unlike anything you can fully anticipate from inside the grip of holding on. The weight you have become so accustomed to that it registers as simply the density of your own life lifts in a way that does not feel like loss, but like the first unobstructed breath you have drawn in longer than you can remember. The moment you truly release, everything changes. This is not poetry. This is the operational reality of a life that has freed up its most fundamental resource, the directed energy of your full attention and desire, to flow toward what is genuinely present rather than what is perpetually almost here. Space is not emptiness. It is invitation. The space created by a genuine, complete, spiritually grounded release becomes the fertile ground into which the universe immediately begins to plant what comes next. This is the nature of the divine timing you have been asking about, the synchronicity that seems to stall when you are too occupied with what was to be available for what is arriving. The timing was never the problem. The occupied field was the problem. The release is the resolution. As for this person, the one you are in the process of releasing, the truth is this: they may return. People who have been genuinely touched by the soul of another person carry that imprint permanently in the collective unconscious of their own relational world. And sometimes, the experience of losing a presence that was unlike any other catalyzes exactly the growth that their proximity to you could not. They may return transformed, carrying what they could not carry before, having done the interior work that the comfort of your patient waiting actually prevented them from undertaking. Or they will not return. And the you who exists 6 months beyond this moment will look back at the version of yourself who could not imagine continuing without them with a tenderness that contains no regret whatsoever, only compassion for the depth of the love that was given and the wisdom that was earned in the giving. If the truth in these words is landing in your chest right now, share this message with someone who is standing at this same threshold and needs to know they are not alone in it. There is a belief deeply embedded in the emotional architecture of unresolved endings, that closure is something another person must provide, a conversation that must be had, a confession that must be made, an apology delivered in precisely the right words, and with precisely the right degree of genuine remorse, so that the ledger between you can finally be balanced and you can at last be free. This belief has kept more souls tethered to completed chapters than perhaps any other single misunderstanding about the nature of healing. You do not need their apology. The liberation that an apology would provide is available to you without it, and waiting for it is another form of the same trap, a different shape of the same cage, requiring the cooperation of the person who is most unlikely to offer exactly what you need in the form you need it. You do not need them to understand what this was, what it cost you, what it meant, what their presence in your life catalyzed in you, and what their particular way of leaving or failing to leave has required you to survive and integrate. Understanding from another person is a grace when it arrives. It is not a prerequisite for your own movement forward. You do not need their permission to graduate from a curriculum they themselves may not be conscious of having administered. The soul teacher rarely knows they are teaching. They are simply living from within their own wounds and limitations. And what you receive from the encounter is shaped by your own willingness to extract meaning from difficulty. The wisdom you carry forward from this is yours. It was always yours. Closure is something you give yourself. It is an interior act of deliberate completion, a conscious decision to look at the totality of an experience, to receive every lesson it contains without reservation or resentment, to acknowledge the genuine gifts it delivered alongside the genuine wounds it inflicted, and then to turn, with your whole body and your whole heart and the entire weight of your intentional will, toward the direction of what is next. This is the authority that resides in you regardless of what this other person does or does not do, says or does not say, understands or continues to fail to understand. You have always possessed the power to end your own waiting. That power has never left you. There is a version of your life that exists beyond this threshold, and it does not look the way loss looks from inside this moment. From here, it can feel as though walking forward means walking into absence, into the echoing void left by a presence that occupied so much of your interior world for so long. But the universe does not deal in voids. Every release is followed by an arrival. Every ending by a beginning whose shape you cannot yet see precisely because you are still standing inside the story that precedes it. Someone is coming who will not require you to explain your worth to them, who will not make you architect elaborate justifications for the basic emotional sustenance that every human soul deserves as its natural inheritance. Someone is arriving who meets your depth with equal depth, your capacity for love with a willingness to receive it fully and return it without the constant rationing and withholding that you have been learning, through the pain of this experience, to recognize as something other than love. This pain was the preparation, not punishment. Preparation. The particular ways this experience has stretched and refined and clarified you have made you precisely the person capable of recognizing and receiving what is genuinely coming, and you would not have been able to receive it with the same depth of appreciation, the same absence of confusion about what it is and what it is not, without having passed through exactly this. Jung wrote that the most terrifying thing is to accept oneself completely. The journey you have been on with this person has been, at its deepest level, a journey toward that complete self-acceptance, toward the understanding that your worthiness of love is not contingent upon any other person's capacity to perceive it, toward the unshakable knowledge of your own interior landscape that only arrives through the navigating of great difficulty. Sit with the fullness of what this was. Allow yourself to feel the bittersweet completeness of it, the grief of what it was not alongside the genuine gratitude for what it gave you, knowing that both can be true simultaneously and that holding both is itself a form of the wisdom you are always here to develop. Thank them silently for the lesson, for the earthquake, for the irrevocable opening they could not have created in you through gentleness alone. Then walk forward, without looking back. Your real love story is not behind you. It is waiting, already in motion, already drawing closer through the space your courage is in the process of creating. It is coming. You are ready.